Welcome to Fragile Bonds, to the powerful stories of family, love, loss, and the choices that shape our lives. Now let's begin today's story.
I'm Jennifer Collins, and I work as a manager at a real estate company. My husband David is an engineer at an IT firm, and we have a 10-year-old daughter named Chloe. Living in suburban Westchester County, New York, we looked like any ordinary family from the outside. That morning started the same hectic way as always. While preparing breakfast in the kitchen, I called out to my daughter. "Chloe, hurry up and eat your breakfast. You'll be late for school." She answered quietly, but her voice had no energy. I was rushing to get ready for work and didn't have time to think deeply about it. Chloe sat at the table and just stared at the toast and scrambled eggs I'd made for her, barely touching them. David glanced at our daughter while reading the newspaper. "Don't you want to go to school?" At David's question, Chloe quickly put on a forced smile. "No, I'm fine." But there was a shadow across her face. Though I noticed it, I focused on the uneaten food on the table and scolded her. "Don't be picky. Eat your food properly." Chloe nodded silently but didn't pick up her fork. I checked the time and hurried with my own preparations. Ever since my promotion, every day had been rushed. The responsibilities of being a manager were heavy, and clients' demands were harsh. That day, too, work continued until late at night. I didn't get home until after 9 p.m. When I entered the living room, Chloe was sitting alone at the dining table doing her homework. David was apparently continuing his overtime work in the study. "Chloe, you're still up." At my voice, she looked up. Her expression suggested she wanted to say something. "Mom, today at school." At that moment, my cell phone rang. My boss's name appeared on the screen. I reflexively answered the call. "Sorry, it's a work call." Chloe closed her mouth. I talked on the phone for about 10 minutes, then hung up with a tired expression. "What were you about to say earlier?" She shook her head slightly. "Nothing. I forgot." I didn't press further and surrendered to my exhaustion, sinking into the sofa. On another evening, Chloe tried to talk to her father about something. David was in the study, facing his computer. "Dad, can I talk to you about something?" David answered without looking away from the screen. "What?" She stared at her father's profile. David remained focused on the computer screen. Chloe let out a small sigh. "Never mind." "Okay." That's all David said before he started typing on the keyboard again. As such days continued, small changes began to appear in our daughter. Chloe, who had previously liked wearing short sleeves, started wearing only long-sleeved shirts even on hot days. Her food intake clearly decreased, and her cheeks became hollow. When she came home from school, she would barely say hello before shutting herself in her room. One night, I said to David, "Chloe doesn't seem very energetic lately." David answered without looking up from his papers. "Probably just adolescent rebellion." I thought for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe you're right." And then we each went back to our work. We didn't try to understand the meaning of our daughter's silence. On Saturday afternoon, I was doing paperwork in the first-floor living room. David was outside tending the garden. Suddenly, I heard a dull sound from upstairs. Following the sound of something tumbling down the stairs, my daughter's scream echoed through the house. I threw down my papers and rushed to the stairs. Chloe was lying on the floor at the bottom of the stairs, clutching her left arm and crying. "Chloe, are you okay?" I knelt beside my daughter. David, hearing the noise, also came running into the house. "How did you fall?" At my husband's question, Chloe looked up with a tear-streaked face. "I slipped." Her voice was small and trembling. I tried to help Chloe up, but she grimaced in pain. Her left arm was bent at an unnatural angle. "We need to get to the hospital." We rushed to get Chloe into the car. In the back seat, Chloe endured the pain and stayed quiet. I turned around from the passenger seat to speak to her. "It's okay, we'll be at the hospital soon." Chloe said nothing. The emergency room's automatic doors opened, and we rushed to the reception desk. A nurse immediately guided Chloe to an examination room. The attending physician was a doctor named Emily Walker. Dressed in a white coat, she looked at Chloe with kind eyes. "How did you get hurt?" At Dr. Walker's question, Chloe answered in a small voice. "I slipped on the stairs." The doctor looked intently into Chloe's eyes. It was a searching gaze. But she quickly returned to a gentle expression and stroked our daughter's head softly. "I see, that must have hurt. But you'll be okay. I'll make you feel better soon." A nurse took Chloe to the X-ray room. David and I were told to wait in the waiting room. David crossed his arms irritably. "Honestly, so careless. How many times do I have to tell her?" I looked at my husband. "David, don't blame her right now." David fell silent and looked at his watch. Work was probably on his mind. I was tired too. This week had been full of problems with clients, and pressure from my boss was intense. Even the time spent at this hospital felt like an obstacle delaying my work. In the X-ray room, Dr. Walker was carefully examining the images that had been taken. Her expression, calm at first, gradually became grim. The nurse nearby noticed and spoke up. "Doctor, is something wrong?" The doctor pointed at the image. "Look at this. There are multiple old fracture marks." The nurse's face changed. "Abuse?" Dr. Walker answered cautiously. "It's possible. However." She stared at the image once more carefully. The location of the fractures, the angles, the state of healing. Something was different from the pattern of abuse. When she returned to the examination room, the doctor carefully observed us. David was still crossing his arms with a cold attitude. I was looking at Chloe with concern, but fatigue showed on my face. The doctor thought to herself, was it abuse or something else? "Sir, could you please wait outside for a moment?" At Dr. Walker's words, David frowned. "Why?" "Since she's a girl, for privacy reasons. I need to conduct a physical examination." David looked displeased but left the examination room. When the door closed, the doctor pulled a chair close to Chloe and sat down. "Chloe, how did you really get hurt?" She dropped her gaze to the floor. "From the stairs." The doctor continued in a gentle but serious voice. "Did someone hit you?" "Your father." "Your mother?" Chloe shook her head vigorously. "No." I gasped in surprise. "Doctor, we would never lay a hand on our daughter." Dr. Walker raised her hand to silence me. Then she turned back to Chloe. "Then how?" "The X-rays show other old fracture marks too. Right wrist, left ankle, ribs. This isn't once or twice." Tears welled up in Chloe's eyes. The doctor waited. A heavy silence filled the examination room. Eventually, Chloe spoke in a trembling voice. "I jumped on purpose. I couldn't believe my ears." "What?" The doctor signaled me to be quiet. Then she asked Chloe, "Why?" With tears streaming down her face, Chloe finally opened up. "At school, everyone." "Are you being bullied?" Chloe nodded. That small movement tightened my chest. The doctor pressed further. "Did you tell your father or mother?" Chloe shook her head again. "I couldn't." "Why?" She looked at me. There was an apologetic light in her eyes. "Because Mom is so busy with work. I didn't want to worry her." I was at a loss for words. Chloe continued. "And Dad would say it's my fault. Before, when I fought with a friend at school and told Dad, he said it was my fault. My daughter's words pierced my heart. We hadn't noticed our daughter's suffering. No, we hadn't tried to notice. Buried in work, fatigue, and the busyness of daily life, we couldn't read the meaning of our daughter's silence. Dr. Walker stood up and took a deep breath. Her expression was serious. The parents weren't abusing her. But the daughter was in serious danger. If things continued like this, something irreversible might happen. After quietly giving instructions to the nurse, the doctor began writing something in the chart. It wasn't a regular examination record. On a small notepad, she carefully chose her words as she wrote. The nurse asked quietly, "Why aren't you giving it to the father?" Dr. Walker answered, "She doesn't trust her father. The mother is more likely to take action. And in this situation, we need to act carefully." The examination ended, and David returned to the examination room. The doctor explained in a normal tone. "It's a fracture. We'll put on a cast." David looked at his watch and asked, "So how many days until it heals?" 2 to 3 weeks. "I'll prescribe pain medication." The doctor continued her matter-of-fact explanation. We settled the bill and were about to leave the examination room. At that moment, Dr. Walker approached me and slipped a small folded piece of paper into my hand. The movement was quick, and David didn't notice. I looked at the doctor in surprise. Dr. Walker looked straight into my eyes and said quietly, "Read it when your husband isn't around." There was urgency in those words. I clutched the note with trembling hands. David turned around. "What's that?" I answered hastily, "Oh, it's instructions for the medication." David didn't seem particularly concerned and started walking toward the exit. I glanced back at Dr. Walker once more. She nodded with a serious expression. The small note felt heavy in my hand. On the way to the parking lot, my head was filled with thoughts of the note I was clutching. What was written on it? Why did I have to read it when my husband wasn't around? The doctor's serious expression wouldn't leave my mind. When we got in the car, Chloe quietly fastened her seatbelt in the back seat. She was carefully cradling her left arm in its cast. David started the engine and looked at our daughter through the rearview mirror. Honestly, so careless. "Be more careful from now on." Chloe answered quietly, "I'm sorry." Her voice was trembling. I turned from the passenger seat to look at her. Chloe was staring out the window. Something indescribable showed on her profile. The note in my hand felt as if it were burning. I was seized by the urge to read it right away, but I couldn't open it next to David. The doctor's words echoed in my ears, "Read it when your husband isn't around." What on earth was written on it? Anxiety and impatience swirled in my chest. When we arrived home, David got out of the car while taking out his cell phone. "Sorry, I've got a work call. I'll take it in the study." He said that and disappeared into the house. Chloe slowly got out of the car and headed for the front door. "I'm going to rest in my room." She said that without looking at me and began climbing the stairs to the second floor. Her back looked smaller than usual. I was left alone in the living room. Silence surrounded me. David's voice leaked from the study. Upstairs, I heard the sound of our daughter closing her door. Now I could read it. With trembling hands, I took the note from my handbag. Carefully, I unfolded the small piece of paper. The doctor's neat handwriting jumped out at me. The moment I read the first line, the blood drained from my body. "Your daughter is in a serious situation." I found myself sinking onto the sofa. My eyes continued following the words. "We found multiple old fracture marks on the X-rays. The right wrist from 6 months ago, the left ankle from a year ago, the ribs from several months ago. This is likely not abuse but self-harm." Self-harm. The words echoed in my head. My daughter had been hurting herself. I couldn't believe it. No, I didn't want to believe it. Your daughter told me she jumped on purpose. She appears to be being bullied at school. Bullying. Chloe. My precious daughter was suffering at school. And I hadn't noticed anything. I'd only been thinking about work. Even when my daughter tried to talk to me, I'd prioritize my cell phone. Back then, Chloe had been asking for help. However, your daughter says she can't tell you or your husband. The note continued. The reasons were listed. She doesn't want to worry you because you're so busy with work. She can't consult with your husband because he tells her it's your own fault. Tears spilled from my eyes. Chloe had been hiding her suffering out of concern for me. What had I been doing as a mother? I should have noticed the changes in my daughter. How she'd started wearing only long sleeves, how she'd lost her appetite, how she'd begun shutting herself in her room. All the signs had been there. Yet I'd turned away from my daughter, using the excuse that I was busy with work. David crossed my mind too. The reason Chloe couldn't talk to her father. Being told, it's your own fault. I remembered that time. 2 years ago, when Chloe had been crying after fighting with a friend, David had blamed our daughter. You must have done something wrong too, he'd said. Maybe Chloe had closed her heart to her father since that day. At the end of the note was a strong warning from the doctor. Your daughter is asking for help. Please consult with the police and a counselor immediately. Regarding this matter, I recommend consulting with professionals before talking with your husband. If it's an emergency, please contact me anytime. The doctor's contact information was written there. I clutched the note tightly. The words blurred through my tears. Chloe. My precious daughter. You were suffering so much, and I couldn't notice anything. I could hear David's voice from the study. He was on the phone, talking about tomorrow's meeting. A slice of ordinary daily life. But our family could never go back to what it was. I had just learned, for the first time, the truth hidden behind my daughter's silence. I had to act now. The note said to consult with the police and a counselor. But before talking to David. Why had the doctor said that? Because Chloe didn't trust her father. And because I needed to move carefully in this situation. I wiped away my tears and stood up. My hands were still shaking, but my resolve was firm. I had to protect my daughter. As a mother, this time I had to listen to Chloe's voice. The study door opened and David came out. He looked at my face and frowned. What's wrong? You look pale. I answered hastily, I'm just going to run to the store. David looked at his watch. Now? It's already evening. I'll be right back. That's all I said as I grabbed my handbag. David looked suspicious but didn't say anything more. He went back to the study and sat down at his computer. I left through the front door and got in the car. The moment I started the engine, tears began flowing again. My hands gripping the steering wheel were shaking. I took deep breaths, trying to calm myself. Chloe, wait for me. Mommy will definitely protect you. I started driving. My destination was the police station. I placed the note on the dashboard and focused on the road. But in my head, images of my daughter kept appearing. Chloe crying, Chloe enduring pain, Chloe suffering alone. Why couldn't I have noticed? I asked myself that question over and over. I was a failure as a mother. Such thoughts squeezed my chest. But now wasn't the time to blame myself. I had to act for my daughter. The police station came into view. I parked in the lot and ran toward the building. A young female police officer was at the reception desk. Out of breath, I desperately squeezed out the words. My daughter, she's being bullied, and she's self-harming. I couldn't continue. My voice choked with tears. I took the note from my handbag and placed it on the counter. Please, read this. The female officer picked up the note and quickly scanned it. Her expression changed. She immediately called toward the back room. "Chief, it's an emergency." A middle-aged man in uniform came out. When the female officer handed him the note, he began reading it carefully. Then he looked at me. "Please calm down. Tell me the details. What's your daughter's name?" I took a slow breath. In a trembling voice, I answered. "Chloe Collins. She's 10 years old." The chief nodded and offered me a chair. I sat down and began telling everything. About today's injury, the examination at the hospital, the note I'd received from the doctor, and the reasons Chloe couldn't tell us. Everything poured out along with my tears. The chief listened with a serious expression. While taking notes, he occasionally interjected with questions. What school did she attend? Who was her homeroom teacher? Did I know her friends' names? I answered everything I knew. "I understand. We'll start an investigation right away." At the chief's words, I felt relieved for the first time. Maybe I could protect my daughter now. Maybe I could end Chloe's suffering. While sitting in the police station chair, I pictured my daughter's room upstairs. What was Chloe doing now? Was she crying alone? Or was she enduring it quietly, her heart closed as usual? "Wait, Chloe. Mommy will definitely protect you. This time, I'll listen to your voice." The chief called in another officer and conveyed the information I'd given him. A young male officer came in and opened a laptop. They were beginning to move systematically. "First, we'll contact Dr. Walker." The chief called the number written on the note. After several rings, the doctor answered. The chief explained the situation and requested the medical records. The doctor readily agreed to cooperate. "I'll send the X-ray photos and examination records right away. Multiple old fracture marks are confirmed. My diagnosis is that these are from self-harm. The daughter told me she was being bullied at school." After hanging up, the chief instructed that the school be contacted. The young officer looked up the school's number and made the call. After a while, the principal seemed to answer. "This is the Westchester Police. We need to speak with you about an urgent matter concerning a student named Chloe Collins." I could hear the principal's voice on the other end. The officer was carefully explaining the situation. After a while, he frowned. "You haven't received any reports of bullying. However, we have a doctor's diagnosis and the student's testimony. We'll conduct interviews with classmates tomorrow." The principal seemed to reluctantly agree to cooperate. After hanging up, the officer reported to the chief. "The school says they weren't aware." The chief sighed deeply. "That happens often. Bullying occurs where no one sees." Hearing those words, my chest ached. At home and at school, no one had noticed Chloe's suffering. My daughter had been completely isolated. The next day, the police and school counselor began interviewing Chloe's classmates. At first, no one would speak up. The children were tense in front of the police and remained silent. But one girl found the courage to start talking. Actually, I knew. The girl's name was Sarah. She continued hesitantly. "I've seen Madison and the others bullying Chloe. But I was too scared to stop them. Madison's father is a lawyer, and Madison always brags about it." Following Sarah's testimony, other students began to talk. The full picture of the bullying gradually became clear. There were 3 perpetrators, a group consisting of Madison, Emily, and Sophia. The leader was Madison, whose father was apparently a prominent local lawyer. The bullying had started about a year ago. They made fun of Chloe's appearance. Called her fat and ugly. Every time they passed her in the hallway, they said mean things loud enough for her to hear. They hid Chloe's belongings or deliberately broke them. They got the class to avoid talking to Chloe. And they persistently sent messages from anonymous accounts on social media. The police asked me to let them examine Chloe's cell phone and social media accounts. I went to my daughter's room and took her phone from a drawer. Chloe looked at me anxiously. "Mom, what are you?" I took my daughter's hand. "Chloe, I want to help you. Will you show me?" Chloe thought for a moment, then nodded slightly. She told me the password. I opened the phone with trembling hands. The messaging app contained a massive number of messages sent from anonymous accounts. Words lined up that made me want to look away. "You're ugly. Nobody likes you. You'd be better off dead. If you tell your parents, we'll do worse things. We'll sue your family." Tears blurred my vision of the screen. My daughter had been receiving these messages every day. Alone, unable to tell anyone. Police experts tracked the IP addresses. It turned out that many of the messages had been sent from Madison's home. It was definitive evidence. That night, I went to Chloe's room. She was sitting on the bed, staring at her casted arm. I knocked on the door and entered. "Chloe, let's talk." Chloe looked up. Her expression was anxious. I sat on the edge of the bed, next to my daughter. "The doctor told me," I said gently but clearly, "Chloe, that you hurt yourself on purpose." Tears spilled from Chloe's eyes. "Mom, I'm sorry." I hugged my daughter. Her warm body was trembling. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't notice. You were suffering so much." Chloe continued crying against my chest. As if all the emotions she'd been holding in were pouring out at once. I stroked my daughter's back while also crying. After a while, Chloe began to talk. About the bullying at school, the mean things Madison and the others said every day, the threats on social media, and how painful it was to go to school. She told me everything, in fits and starts. "Why didn't you tell me?" When I asked, Chloe answered in a tearful voice. "Mom seemed so busy with work, and I didn't want to trouble you with my problems. I saw how tired you always were." Those words pierced my chest. My daughter had hidden her suffering out of concern for me. "I tried talking to Dad before," Chloe continued. "When I fought with a friend, I told Dad, but he said it was my fault. So I thought I couldn't talk to him anymore. I thought of David. He wasn't a bad person. But he was too logical and couldn't understand our daughter's feelings. And our daughter had closed her heart to her father. I'm sorry. It was Mommy's fault. I was only focused on work and didn't listen to Chloe. But it's okay now. Mommy will definitely protect Chloe." Chloe clung to me and cried. We held each other like that for a long time. The next day, the school called in Madison, Emily, and Sophia. A police officer was also present in the principal's office. The three girls initially denied everything. Madison in particular maintained a defiant attitude. "I didn't do anything like that. Do you have proof?" But when the officer showed the social media message records and IP address tracking results, Madison's face changed. Emily and Sophia began to cry. It was just playing around. We weren't serious. Madison made excuses, but the principal said with a stern expression, "This is serious bullying. All of you are being suspended." When Madison's father heard the news, he immediately stormed into the school. He was a prominent lawyer who had always protected his daughter. "There's no way my daughter would do such a thing. Show me the proof." The officer calmly presented the social media messages, IP address tracking results, and testimony from multiple students. Medical records were also attached. Madison's father looked at the documents and was at a loss for words. The evidence was clear. I hired a lawyer and decided to file a civil lawsuit against Madison's family. I would seek damages for the emotional distress my daughter had suffered and the cost of treatment. Furthermore, I decided to pursue the school's administrative responsibility. They had overlooked the bullying and failed to take appropriate action. That night, I told David everything. He sat on the study sofa and listened silently to my story. About the bullying, the self-harm, and the reasons Chloe couldn't tell us. That can't be, Chloe. David's face showed disbelief. I continued. You didn't notice either. Both of us overlooked our daughter's suffering. David covered his face with both hands. She said she couldn't talk to you. Because when she fought with a friend before, you blamed Chloe. David looked up. Tears were forming in his eyes. I was too cold to our daughter. Telling her it was her fault, I'm the worst kind of father. I sat next to my husband. It's not too late. Let's support Chloe together. Let's never leave our daughter alone again. David nodded. And for the first time, my husband cried aloud. We were both failures as parents. But now we had a chance to start over. A chance to protect and support our daughter. We went upstairs and knocked on Chloe's door. We heard a small voice from inside. Come in. When we opened the door, Chloe was sitting on the bed. She looked surprised to see both David and me coming in together. David knelt in front of our daughter. Chloe, I was wrong. I didn't listen to you, and I blamed you. I'm truly sorry. Chloe's eyes widened. She was probably seeing her father apologize like this for the first time. David continued. From now on, I'll listen to you properly. Dad is on your side. Chloe threw her arms around her father while crying. David hugged our daughter tightly. Watching that scene, I couldn't stop my tears. We were finally beginning to become a real family. 2 years have passed since then. Twice a week, Chloe goes to see a counselor. During the first few months, she often stayed silent in the counseling room. But gradually, she opened up. The counselor was kind and repeatedly told her, it's not your fault. The ones doing the bullying are at fault. Each time she heard those words, Chloe's expression grew a little brighter. She stopped blaming herself and gradually regained her self-esteem. I slowed down my work pace. I turned down the promotion offer too. My boss looked surprised, but my resolve was firm. I want to value time with my family. There were things more important than work. That was my daughter's smile. Now I come home every evening and eat dinner with Chloe. I listen to what happened at school, help with homework, and just stay by her side. Just doing these simple things, I realized how important they were. David changed too. He no longer shut himself in the study as before. When our daughter talks to him, he always closes his laptop and listens while looking at her. Even when Chloe comes to him with concerns, he doesn't say, "It's your fault," anymore. He just listens and thinks together with her. One night, Chloe said in the living room, "Mom, Dad, thank you." Hearing those words, we looked at each other. Our daughter's smile made us happier than anything. After that incident, Madison transferred to another school. Her father, the lawyer, lost his reputation and many clients. Madison herself, I heard, carried the label of being a bully at her new school and was isolated. Emily and Sophia sent apology letters to Chloe. Written in careful handwriting, the letters contained words of regret. Chloe cried when she read those letters. I don't know yet if I'll forgive them. That's what our daughter said. I thought that was fine. Forgiveness isn't something that should be forced. Chloe could face her own heart and decide for herself. And this year, Chloe became a middle school student. A new environment, new friends. She says sometimes things are difficult, but now she talks to us about them. Today something unpleasant happened in class. She tells us things like that. We listen carefully and think together. We won't leave our daughter alone anymore. Last month, Chloe won a prize in a school essay contest. The theme was, My Family. David and I read Chloe's essay with tears streaming down our faces. My family isn't perfect. But they love me. That's what matters most. Those words said it all. One Sunday morning, the three of us took a photo in the yard. David asked a neighbor to take a family picture for us. Everyone was smiling. Real smiles. The sound of the shutter echoed. I etched this moment into my heart. We changed to protect this smile. We can't erase the past when we failed to notice our daughter's silence. But from now on, it will be different. A real family isn't just about being together. It's about noticing each other's pain and supporting one another. We learned that through pain. Watching Chloe playing in the yard, I thought, when children fall silent, it's a sign they're asking for help. Work, money, success, these things might be important. But what matters most is our family's smiles. We took the long way around. But finally, we became a real family. On the living room wall hangs the family photo we took that day. The smiles of three people will continue to watch over us from now on.